Convinced as we all are that this country, Colombia, which we've been given a chance to discover or know better, is going through a historical moment thanks to the courage and vision of President Santos and his team. I was desperately looking for good news coming from the north, from the US. Well, that's difficult to find these days. And then I ran into a speech by Michelle Obama 3 days ago, a speech about women to women. And she basically said, speak up, talk back, don't accept submission. We women are indeed the better part of the world, and yet, we all know that, don't we? And that's what our friend has just said. But we also know that in many countries in the world, a woman's life is worth very little. And even in some parts of the world, nothing at all. Afghanistan is one of those places where for generations, and especially under Taliban rule, in part of the country today, women's fate is just as abysmal. Talk up, speak up, but also write. And that is the very clever and brave idea of this wonderful young woman I'm going to introduce you to. Her name is Noorjahan Akbar, and her platform, she has created a platform called Free Women Writers, and she encourages women in Afghanistan, women who can write, there are not that many of those, unfortunately, women in Afghanistan, but also in the diaspora, to write in Pashtun, in Farsi, to write about their experience, their sufferings, to write under their own names when they dare, or when they cannot, by fear of retaliation and sometimes from within their own families, to write under other names. So Noorjahan is not only very courageous, and so have been, I understand, her mother, her grandmother, her whole family. But she understands that sharing emotions, sharing sufferings, but also nightmares, but also dreams, is very much part of everybody's freedom and every woman's freedom. Now, she's also a very modest young woman, so she won't tell you that she's been listed by Forbes among the 100 most powerful women in the world for her work on gender equality. She won't tell you that even here in Bogota, where we're all having such a wonderful time, she still has nightmares when she dreams about her country. And you know what her first name means in her language, Noorjahan? It means light of the world. Your turn.
Well, thank you, Christine. That was incredibly kind and generous. Hola, Bogota. I'm so happy to be here and share the story of the woman of my country. I was 40 days old when civil war broke out in Kabul, Afghanistan. My family gathered the basic essentials and we fled to the north of the country. Unfortunately, it wasn't the first or the last time that my family would be uprooted by violence. When the Taliban took over Afghanistan, we had to move again and live as refugees in Pakistan for years. My family's story is not extraordinary. Millions of Afghans have had to leave their loved ones, their homes, their friends, and networks of support because of war and conflict. Even today, tens of thousands of Afghans are stuck between two impossible choices: returning to Afghanistan, where they could lose their lives in suicide attacks or airstrikes, or staying in countries where they're not welcomed. War has destroyed the very fabric of society in Afghanistan, and it has also normalized violence in everyday life. Women, as it is around the world, bear the brunt of this violence. Time and time again, women's bodies have been treated like an extension of the battlefield. During the war against the Soviet Union, 70% of girls' schools were burned down. Schoolgirls and university women were kidnapped and raped in huge numbers. Women's breasts were cut off. Many were forced into prostitution. All this happened simply because we were women. I believe that this decades-long cycle of violence in Afghanistan can only be broken if women are given a meaningful voice in deciding the country's future. I lead a collective of Afghan women called Free Women Writers. We are known as Dukhtaran Rabi'a in Afghanistan. More than 130 women have contributed to our books and online platforms. Their authentic stories reach an audience of 62,000 people every week via a Facebook blog written in the local languages of Pashto and Persian. We also reach many, many more through partnerships with newspapers and radios so that those who don't have internet can also read our voices. Nearly every woman writer has written about gender-based violence at home and outside. It would be naive to believe that the state and terrorist violence against women does not seep into the home. After more than 5 decades of conflict where women's bodies have been abused in war zones, it is a sad but really unsurprising reality that 87% of Afghan women have faced violence at home. Changing cultural norms on gender and shifting the concentration of power in Afghanistan will not be easy. The Mujahideen believed that urban women who had ventured out of the house for jobs or education were no longer Muslims, and so their bodies were fair game. Later, the Taliban instituted draconian laws to control our bodies and our lives. From our nail polish to the length of our pants, we were scrutinized. We faced violence for the smallest transgression against their rigid rules. One of my friends was devastated because she was allowed to go outside, but only if she had her 6-month-old son with her. She said to me, she would say all the time, "I have fewer rights than this thing that I gave birth to." Even today, Taliban have archaic views about women. A recent report showed that in order to agree to peace, they have specific demands that would significantly curtail women's political and social rights. The Taliban and their allies continue attacking girls' schools, teachers, women's rights activists, and really anyone else who dares to speak up against them. When we talk about making peace sustainable, we have to pay attention to the gendered experience of war. Whether it's in the stories of ISIS in Syria and in Iraq, or in the stories of mass shooters in the US, it's becoming clearer every day that those who contribute to violence outside the home in the society are first and foremost violent towards those women in their own families. According to UN Women, when women are involved in negotiations, peace is 30% more likely to last. For peace to become a lasting reality, Women's voices must be an integral part of peace building. From the home to the heart of the government. And until that's a reality, until there is peace, not only in the nation state, but also in every single one of our homes, we, Afghan women, young people, should not be silent. We will not be silent. We will not be marginalized. We will not shut up. Thank you so much. Te amo, Bogota!